Welcome to TV Trash. In 3 years now, we've seen a lot of bad TV shows, and many of them met a quick end because of their total suckitude. But there have been plenty of shows over the years that probably didn't deserve to get the quick axe from network executives that they did. Now, let's be honest. What stands as a show getting screwed over is very subjective. Fans of any show will call foul if they feel it ended too soon. King of the Hill and Married with Children fans think their shows were screwed, and yes, they were canned abruptly at the end, but it's hard to say a show was screwed after being on for more than a decade. I had to take all possible circumstances and the behind-the-scenes stories I could find to determine which shows got the shaft the worst in my view. I fully expect my viewers to have examples that didn't make this list, and you're free to cite them in any comments. But these are the ones I feel were the worst examples, so if you're a fan of these shows, prepare to have your blood raging again. These are my picks for the top 10 most screwed over TV shows. Justice and Teen Titans. When I proposed this list, I got a lot of requests for at least one of Cartoon Network's action series, like the new Thundercats or their newer DC shows from the past couple of years. And while this spot is mainly about Young Justice, I'm including Teen Titans because you'll see. The Young Justice series, which seemed to be a loose adaptation of the comic series of that name and the DC animated universe from a decade ago, drew praise from many viewers, but was victim of Cartoon Network mucking up its schedule like it's done for many other DC shows. It was put on hiatus so many times that the first season took more than a year to air its 26 episodes. Then, after its summer break, the second season of It and Green Lantern went 2 episodes before putting the rest of the season on hold until January. Then they announced both shows were canceled 3 weeks after bringing them back. There were hopes that the replacement show was a long-begged-for revival of Teen Titans, but those have been dashed by the reveal that it will basically be a superhero sitcom featuring chibi versions of the Titans. I can definitely put this one on the list because, to be frank, I don't know what the hell Time Warner's doing with its DC properties. From the ridiculous relaunch of the comic book series to them seemingly screwing over every animated show they put out now, they definitely deserve all the rage that DC fans throw at them. WCW Nitro. This one might be a stretch because the show did last 5 years, but the circumstances of its demise pretty much force its inclusion here. After seeing its ratings plummet ever since the infamous finger poke of doom, Eric Bischoff put together a last-ditch effort to save WCW by buying it up, relieving Warner of the financial burden while keeping Nitro on the air. He appeared to have everything in place, and it was all shot down by the new head of the Turner Networks, Jamie Kellner. The man known for accusing TiVo of stealing from networks declared wrestling was too Neanderthal for the high-class Turner Networks and pulled the plug on everything, allowing Vince McMahon to swoop in and buy up WCW for pennies on the dollar. Now, some have suggested that WCW was so in the toilet that this only sped up the inevitable. But I dispute that, and keep in mind, I was never even a WCW fan. I didn't get into wrestling until a year after it had died. But given how many thought WWE was dead in the mid-90s and they recovered, and seeing how TNA Impact has now been on for 10 years with wrestling supposedly worse than Nitro ever had, I'm inclined to think that with the right people, Bischoff could have gotten Nitro and WCW competitive again. But they never got the chance because of executives that thought wrestling was too low class. And then they proceeded to put together the absolute most low-class, worthless, disgusting yellow journalism show to ever disgrace the small screen!
I got a brand new combiner, soon I'll give you the key. Come on now, let's get together.
Valentine. This is one you might not have heard of. In 2008, Media Rights Capital had the time slots for the CW Sunday night lineup, and one of the shows they produced there was Valentine, a romantic dramedy about the Greek gods living in our modern world led by Aphrodite and needing to unite soulmates to keep their own immortality. Trust me, it was executed a lot better than it sounds. There was the potential for some good drama and suspense on the level of Desperate Housewives here. But the show got screwed over by both its production company and network. Media Rights Capital basically had no money and couldn't secure a loan for more funding. To make things worse, the CW gave the show no advertising, leaving that block flapping in the wind. Production was halted after just 8 episodes were made and 4 were aired, supposedly to give the show more time to finish production. That never happened, and the last 4 made episodes weren't aired until the summer of 2009, long after the few who were watching had forgotten. This show is on my list of potential TV treasures reviews if I can ever secure the episodes and even more information as to what exactly happened. But for now, consider this a show with a lot of good potential that never got a fair shake because not enough people behind the scenes cared. Arrested Development. Yeah, you knew this had to make the list somewhere. The sitcom beloved by the intelligent, whose network never gave it a fair shake. For 3 years, Fox continually meddled with this show. They demanded the writing be dumbed down, despite the show winning an Emmy in its first year, because Fox doesn't know how to market shows that require an IQ higher than that of a sea monkey to understand. And they shifted its time slot repeatedly, the biggest sign that a network doesn't give a crap about your show. But of course, the ultimate show of disrespect was when the series came to a final close, when Fox shoved the final 4 episodes into one whole 2-hour block, airing on the opening night of the 2002 Winter Olympics. I will say, though, that despite it getting the screw job, the show came to a pretty decent conclusion, as evidenced by my putting it on my list of best finales. So I do question the show finally getting revived and being distributed on Netflix this year. But in a way, it's reflective of its theme. Now the story of the intelligent TV show that lost everything, and the brave cast and crew that did everything they could to bring it back together. Battlestar Galactica. I've talked multiple times before about how the original Galactica got screwed every which way to Sunday, quite literally, but you really need to know the details from the beginning to know just how much it got the shaft, because this show was created expecting it to fail. Space operas were the rage in the late 70s thanks to Star Wars, but no space drama other than Star Trek had lasted more than a year at that time. So ABC greenlit Galactica, expecting it to draw early, but for people to eventually gravitate to their sitcoms. However, the show proved to be more popular than they expected, but production was so high it was a popular money pit. So ABC went into complete sabotage mode, creating the follow-up Galactica 1980, and just watch my review of that show to see all that was wrong with it. Things were so bad that nobody enjoyed producing the show, and just about everyone was rooting for the ratings to drop to the levels that the show would be canceled. Like I said before, they got their wish after 10 episodes, and ultimately ABC's plan didn't work because a bunch of retools to the likes of Mork and Mindy and their other sitcoms dropped those ratings as well, so it all turned out to be one giant bomb for the network. Fortunately, sci-fi fans got the reboot 20 years later, but this shows as a classic example of how much you can get the shaft job when people give you a chance expecting you to bomb. Wonderfalls. Known for receiving one of the quickest deaths in Fox's history, and that's saying something, Wonderfalls was about a socially awkward girl hearing voices from stuffed animals telling her how to make the world a better place. Kind of like Donnie Darko without the nihilism or extreme what the effery. Fox delayed its premiere for a year because of its supposed similarity to Joan of Arcadia, because networks have never aired shows similar to another before, which only led to the show being accused of being a ripoff than just a coincidence. It also aired at first on Friday night, which is where shows usually go to die. It was quickly moved to Thursday, which might have increased ratings, except they never mentioned the time change to anyone. The show was pulled after just 4 episodes, despite them advertising the airing of the 5th, which they never did. All 13 episodes that were made have since been released on DVD, and the show has gained a cult following. But that's just led it to being perhaps the biggest example of a cult show that Fox gave the screw job to. Well, maybe except for one more. Firefly! I'm actually shocked that I made it this far with only 3 Fox shows posted, but this is the one most sci-fi fans today remember with ire. The show was screwed with from the beginning, with Fox forcing producers to cut the pilot from a 2-hour movie to a single-hour episode in just 1 week. Then they aired the episodes completely out of order, despite the show having a long-reaching story arc, going so far as to air episodes that teased with previously on segments showing episodes they hadn't aired yet. It premiered in September of 2002, rather than hold it until after the end of Fox's baseball coverage, which the network will do for shows it cares about, resulting in it getting preempted frequently, and it got 0 advertising whatsoever after the pilot. The series was canned in December of that year, with 3 episodes not yet airing, but yet the season finale was shown, leaving many to wonder if River Tam herself had been in charge of airing the show. Actually, that's not fair. River Tam probably would have used more common sense. All of NBC in 1979-80. It takes a special talent for an entire network to get the screw job, and that's what Fred Silverman did to America's original broadcast network at the end of the 70s. His attempt to revive the network like he did at ABC is one of the most spectacular bombs in TV history. First, there was Super Train, an abysmal attempt at a Love Boat knockoff with a nuclear train, which I would have gladly reviewed by now if I had enough episodes. Then came Pink Lady and Jeff, which was so horrible that it truly killed off the variety show genre. Then there was the infamous 6th season of Saturday Night Live. Just don't mention that year to SNL fans. Just don't. But the capper was grossly outbidding ABC for their coverage of the 1980 Summer Olympics, which the US boycotted. Doh! Long story short here, the network and its parent company RCA almost went into bankruptcy before Grant Tinker took over and turned everything around. So this is a rare example of getting screwed and surviving, but the sheer number of everything wrong that Silverman did gives me no choice but to put this so high on our list. Playmakers. Some would wonder what business ESPN had in making a drama series in the first place, but keep in mind, those letters have always stood for the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network. Playmakers was a 2003 series about a fictitious pro football team and the struggles the players had with their own lives on and off the football field. The show received praise not just from TV critics, but from actual NFL players on how realistic it depicted the lives of pro athletes. But it was a bit too realistic for the suits in the NFL offices, and they ordered ESPN to kill the show after one season, which ESPN did since they had a broadcast contract with the league. At this point, the NFL had recently seen 2 of its players implicated in murder trials. Another would be convicted of running a dogfighting ring a few years later, and many players face rape, assault, and drug possession charges each year. But no, this was what was giving the league a bad name. A fictitious show that didn't even reference the actual NFL at all. It was the ultimate display of the football giant flexing its muscle to manipulate the media and screw over dramatic creativity. And yet, that wasn't even the worst example of a show getting screwed over by outside forces who couldn't handle dramatic license. My number 1 pick? GCB. This was one of the worst examples of moral guardians whining to networks and demanding they undercut a show just because they feel they're being mistreated by a fictional medium. GCB aired in 2012 as the hopeful next edition in ABC's Sunday night drama lineup. It was basically Desperate Housewives meets Dallas, about a widow trying to rebuild her life in high-class North Texas and facing the wrath of the classmates she made miserable years ago. Women who would stoop to all forms of mudslinging and duplicitous tactics to get their way while still trying to appear to be good Christian women, hence the full title, Good Christian Bitches. And then a group of real Christian bitches, the right-wing hate group 1 Million Moms, threatened to boycott and bully advertisers into pulling their funding, and ABC acquiesced, pulling the plug 2 months after the show premiered, with the series finale still drawing more than 5.5 million viewers. Let me say this. It is the purpose of TV Trash to present my opinions. I will tell you why I think a show sucks. I will give those reasons as to why I think a show got canceled. But I would never go so far as to demand that a show must be taken off for no other reason other than I don't like it. I can spew hatred of South Park and TMZ to my heart's content, but as long as they draw viewers, they have the right to be on the air. What 1 Million Moms did in forcing ABC to pull the plug on GCB because they didn't like its depictions of Southern Christians is no different than Comedy Central giving in to the demands of extremist Muslims and removing all Muhammad references from episodes of South Park. And it is absolutely deplorable that the demands were met by a media conglomerate that still allows ABC Family to air the propaganda show of a known Christian terrorist. They can claim contractual obligation to allow Pat Robertson to say men should have the right to abuse their wives. But a fictitious show that might put Christians in a bad light? That can't be on the air! It's one of the ultimate examples of how even today, extremists still have too much pull in censoring our entertainment because they're too damn thin-skinned. I didn't watch an episode of GCB until preparing for this list, and I still haven't seen enough to give a full opinion on the series. But to hear why this show met its end when it looked like it might have drawn a following if given some time, I just have 3 words for groups like 1 Million Moms. Go to hell! The only thing worse than a TV show that sucks is a hate group that doesn't give a show the chance to prove it can suck. See you next time on TV Trash!